Hi, it's Haya Grossberg, and I want to tell you about this dinner party I went to last night as I'm walking around this track on a very beautiful, crisp, not so sunny day here in Olympia. So I went to this dinner party last night. It was a meetup for a group that does dinners once a month, and I've only been to it once before. I don't really know these folks very well. It's a pretty mainstream crowd, and most of the folks are considerably older than me, but there was one woman that I connected with last time, and she just seemed really intelligent, and so yeah, I was actually surprised that this woman had such a positive response to a conversation that came up. So basically, there was a man there who works for Social Security Administration, determining whether or not people can get disability. And he was talking about his job. And I suggested to him to read Anatomy of an Epidemic by Bob Whitaker, which is about how the disability rates have gone up exponentially since people started becoming diagnosed and drugged for psychiatric labels excessively in the past decade or two. So this conversation came up, and then I was just suggesting that book to the guy, and we started all talking about psychiatric diagnoses and how they've increased the disability rates and how lots of kids are being labeled ADHD and put on drugs very early on. And I mentioned that over 500,000 people under the age of 2, so infants, have been put on antipsychotics with a study that just came out. I had read about that, and everybody was talking about that. So anyways, then this one woman, the one who I mentioned, who I thought was really intelligent, at the last dinner party when I spoke to her, asked me what I do. And she's like, I see her as like a savvy networker and somebody who's like, she's a coach and she coaches corporate businesses. So I wondered if she had actually looked me up and already knew what I did. And I felt kind of on the spot because she asked me and everybody was listening. And I always feel awkward when I'm at a party and people ask me what I do, because for one thing, I'm not very good at saying what I do in like one sentence, but and I also just don't know how it will be received. And sometimes it can be really awkward because so many people have firsthand experience or secondhand experience with psychiatry. So, but I just said, I asked her, I was like stuttering. I was like, do you already know? Why are you asking? And then I was just like, okay, Kai, get over yourself. So I said, I help people find alternatives to the mainstream mental health system. And she just was like, whoa, that's great. That's amazing. And she just totally was very encouraging, positive about it. And then the conversation ended up going towards disability again, and the question of people who are older getting on disability versus people who are younger. And they were saying that for somebody older, it's actually easier to get on disability because the assumption is that if somebody's in their 60s and they have a back injury and have been a roofer their whole life, then it's unlikely that they're going to want to now work in a lawyer's office doing admin or something. But what kind of disturbed me about that part of the conversation, which I never actually had the opportunity to bring up, was this idea that we all have to fit ourselves into the workforce. And I know that is the reality for a lot of people, and I have no judgment about that, because obviously in the current system we all need to find some way to make money and survive and get by, or even thrive, right? With a lot of jobs in the current workforce, we might be making a lot of money doing something that may or may not be quite in alignment with our sense of our purpose of being here on this planet. But I was just disturbed that there was no mention of the idea that everyone does have a purpose. It doesn't matter how old they are, what injuries they have, what illnesses they have, what trauma they've been through, how hard it might be to get out of bed in the morning or to relate with others. We all have a purpose in being here. And I think that is really the fundamental issue that needs to be addressed, is why isn't the economy supporting people's actual purposes here? Why is it supporting things that people aren't really able to do or interested in doing? What do you think?